All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks so much for watching this interview today. I have Anna with me. She has a company called Anna's Bath Treats, and she is a mama of two kiddos. And she makes homemade artisan soaps and bath and body products. And we're super excited to hear about your story and how it all came together. So thanks so much for joining me today, Anna.
Well, thank you for having me. It's going to be a pleasure.
So tell me a little bit about how you discovered making these products and how that business came together for you. What's your story?
So my background is an IT background. And so I was in IT for about 15 plus years. And then once I got married and when my husband and I decided to start having a family, I decided to quit my full-time job so I can stay home with my kids. And then I decided, once my kids got a little bit older, that I would go back to work. But I just kind of got really busy with kids and volunteering. You know how that goes. At one point I was doing 40 hours of volunteering between school and Cub Scouts and church. And we also had a robotics team with our kids. So that kept us pretty busy. But as I kept getting older, I was like, I kind of want to go back to work. But I wanted to do like a home-based business so I could still be home with my kids and be able to be available to run them to wherever, soccer or piano or all their activities. So I wanted to be available. And going back into the IT field, you work so much overtime that I was nervous that it would just take over my life. So I started looking into the different businesses to do and what I would like to do and what I didn't like to do. And I love to create, and I'm a very creative person. And so I was having a really hard time. Okay, do I just go to a 9-to-5 job or do I try and find something else? And my family, we love to go to events like the farmers market and places like Art in the Park, things like that. And I would always go and find businesses who would make bath and body products. I love the homemade products. I love the different soap designs. I love how they make you feel on your skin, because they don't have all the chemicals in it. And so one day, one of the events at Art in the Park, my husband, he was carrying my soap. I think I went and bought like 20 bars of soap. Because I was going to give them away for Christmas and stuff too. But he's like, instead of like buying all this stuff, why don't you just start your own soap business? And I'm like, never really thought about that before. So I took about 4 or 5, 6 months to research, into that because I never would have thought that I would ever start a bath and body product business. And so I did a lot of research, watched a lot of videos, read a lot about, how do you go about doing it? There's different ways of making soap and, can you make this a home business? And so I started doing a lot of research and I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this, because you can be so creative in it. And that's the part I really, really liked. And plus it was better for, your skin, health-wise and stuff, especially for my kids because they would get like little bumps from using other products on their skins because of how sensitive they were. So in January of 2017, I went ahead and did it. I went ahead and applied for the EIN number and registered with the state. And my daughter's birthday party was in January. Her birthday's in January. So for her birthday party, we did a spa night. So we made bath bombs and lip gloss, and that was just a lot of fun. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I think I can do this. So I went and I ordered, I was trying to think, I think like $700 to $800 worth of product. Just a bunch of molds and different ingredients to make the soap for it. And so I started making that and started trying to figure out recipes and things because one of the things that I read is, you want to kind of do it at least a year before you start selling. And so, and I really, before I started the soap making, I kind of thought I wanted to do like wedding cakes and things like that, like baking, because I love doing that type of stuff. So I was like, okay, let's see what the difference is, And so I started doing it and I did it for like 2 or 3 months doing testing and stuff. And I ended up in the ER like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, well, what's going on? This is kind of weird, And I know that when you're making soap, you deal with a product called lye. And lye is poisonous. So it's kind of ironic that it's poisonous, but when, it goes into the spodification process with the oils, it turns into something that you can use on your skin. And so, I was really careful, like they said, wear gloves, wear goggles and things, make sure you have everything covered in your kitchen, so the light doesn't get on it, wear long sleeves so it doesn't splash on your skin. And so I did all that. So I didn't really think about it. But after like the third time in the ER, I'm kind of like, what is going on? Because I mean, I would like almost wear like a hazmat suit, it's like I would go outside, make my product with my goggles and gloves and everything, but I would still get really sick and have respiratory problems. And so the doctor, after the third ER visit, he's like, okay, no more. You're that allergic to the lye that you cannot make soap. And I'm like, but that's what I wanted to do. So it was kind of like, you do all this research, read about everything that how to start a business, what to do with the business, but never, ever did I ever think, oh, what if I'm allergic to products? It just wasn't something that I thought about. So I had to reevaluate like, well, okay, so if I can't make soap, then what do I do, And I was really bummed. So I took about a week to figure out, okay, what did I want to do with this business, or do I just quit? And there's several different ways of making soap. The soap that I really wanted to do, the cold processing, is where you actually make the recipe, and it's more like cake decorating. You can do all these really pretty, beautiful designs. Or you can do something called melt and pour, where you actually buy soap in bulk, and then they ship it to you, and then you have to melt it down and redesign it. So you add things, you add fragrances or essential oils, additives, and you do the designing. And I didn't really want to do that because in the soap industry, it's kind of like, well, it's not really handmade. It's handcrafted, but not handmade. And so I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to do that because I want people to still buy it. And so I'm like, okay. So I did a research on some of the companies that sell this melt and pour. And you can actually buy some stuff like that, like at Hobby Lobby or Michael's. But I didn't really like how they felt on the skin. And so I went to a couple other places that sold it. And so I just started playing around with it. And it's a lot different than the cold process. It hardens a lot faster and a lot of things you can't do, but different things. And so I just started playing around with it. I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this, maybe, I can sell it and things. So the August of that year was my first event, Nampa Festival of Arts. And it was a really huge success. I was really surprised about, how many people still wanted to buy things, because I only had soap and bath bombs. And I knew that I couldn't compete with the handmade products that other companies around here make. So I wanted to stand out. And so my company, my niche is, okay, I want my bar to look really pretty. I want it to have its own unique design. I want it to be like, oh, wow. I mean, really, this cupcake is soap. It's not a muffin or a cupcake, right? And so that's what I did. And I had a lot of fun with it, especially at the Festival of Arts. And I made like all these different designs, and some of them were cupcakes. And so I would just have a lot of people drawn to my booth. And they're like, wow, can I buy this? And then when I told them that they couldn't eat it, it wasn't a cupcake or it was soap, they would start laughing. And some people actually got really upset. What do you mean? I walked all the way over here and it's a cupcake, So it was just really nice, because I could just do really, really fun things with it. And so I just kind of went from there and signed up for certain events like in the fall and the winter, and had a really good time doing it. So I'm like, okay, I think I can do this, And so it's just been really interesting how most of how I sell my product, I've just been so busy by word of mouth or events that I haven't done like a website, or I don't really sell on Instagram or Facebook. I mean, I post, but I just really don't sell a lot. And so it's kind of ironic, since I have an IT background, that I don't have a website. My husband for 3 years, you need a website, you need a website. I'm like, I know, but I've been so busy, I just can't do it, So it's just been a really interesting thing where, I didn't really think, okay, I really wanted to turn this into a big business. I just kind of wanted to stay home. And another one of the things I wanted to do with my home business was kind of expose my kids to work, especially my daughter, to show her, okay, you can start your own business if you want, because I never, ever thought that when I was growing up. That was never discussed, and just to show her, okay, if you have your own business, this is what you do, and just kind of get, them to work a little bit to show them what it's going to take. And so it's been a really great experience through it.
Yeah, I would say so. And it's funny when you talk about your product, because when you do jump on Instagram, it is a showstopper. It's like a piece of art. So I think that's fabulous that you were able to visualize and kind of put yourself into that niche that stood you apart, since you had to kind of go off a little bit of what you originally thought you were going to do in terms of soap making. So I think that's really great. So after hearing your story, if you were to start over again, knowing that it was kind of a lengthy process, all the research and learning, if you had to start all over again and had like a cute little teenage or that you were mentoring, what would you tell her to do in terms of learning and educating for a business similar to yours?
I think the one thing, excuse me, I think the one thing is don't be afraid to just start anything. I think that's the one thing I had a hard time with any business is like, well, what if I'm not successful at doing this? Or what if I, don't do this? Or what if I can't sell this? And so it kind of puts a crunch and kind of makes it so you don't start things. And so I think the one thing is, you know what, you can do anything that you want, just start it, And what I really love about this community, especially with the teenagers or even younger kids, doesn't have to be a teenager, there are certain events around here, like you have the bazaars in the fall. A lot of the junior highs, they do this where they allocate so many spaces for teenagers or kids booths. And there's a couple others really great boutiques, the Green Apple Boutique and the Holiday House Boutique. They always have space for kids booths, and they promote it, and it's great because, me as a vendor, it's like, I think it is awesome that they take the time to learn, at a young age that, what, you can do this. And so I always make a point that whenever I see kids selling something, that I try and go and support them and buy something, because I really think that it helps boost their, enthusiasm about it. It's like, hey, yeah, I can do this, And so that, and then talking to people, don't be afraid to ask questions, because I think I can be the poster child of what not to do with starting a business, because there's so many things. It's like, oh man, I wish I would have known this, or I wish I would have had somebody tell me this, because I didn't have any mentoring. I didn't talk to any other soap maker companies, and I wish I would have done that. If you think you're interested in doing something, just stop by and talk to somebody, because most people, they're awesome. They're great about, oh yeah, you can do this, or you know what, this is what I did, or try doing this. Don't be afraid, even if they're a competition. Most people are really good about sharing information. And I think that's the one thing I really like about getting into this, all the different vendors and different companies, collaborating and talking to each other. Whether they're in your business line of work or not, you can always learn something from them. And that's the one thing, listening to some of the interviews that you have given, it's like, even though somebody might be like in web design, or they might be doing sewing or something, you can always learn something from somebody of what they did or what they wouldn't have done if they started their business. So I think that's the one thing.
For sure. And there's so much wisdom. That's what
Yeah.
I've loved the most, being the interviewer for all of these amazing women, is there's just so much wisdom in each and every individual person, and just something very special about them.
Yeah.
And I think it's so great to capture it on video and just to have it for forever for anyone who needs a little bit of motivation or help or mentoring or education in a certain area. So that's great advice. So what do you think is the minimum investment necessary to get a business like this up and rolling?
Well, I think definitely you could probably, if you wanted to start off with an event, like a small event, like maybe event like a Christmas or whatever, you could probably, I don't know, $500-800 or whatever, it would be small, booth wise. But I think, if you're just, especially like if you're younger, teenager wise, I would say just a couple $100. You can easily, you don't even have to go and look at a wholesaler out of town. Like I said, Michael's or Hobby Lobby, they have plenty of things that you can start off with, and you can do coupons, and get like 40% off or whatever. So I definitely think for teenagers, I think you can just do $100 or $200 just to make a few things, to get started. As far as another business, I would think maybe, like I said, I started off with $700-800, and I spent more, when I went to Festival of Arts, because it was a bigger event, So it just depends on what you want to get into and what type of event you are wanting to get to. Or what you could do is you could say, okay, I'm just going to take 6 months and make product for family and friends. That's a great way of feedback, because they'll be more honest with you than your customers at the first, So I think that's what, my advice would be.
So you mentioned both Instagram and Facebook. So are you marketing yourself online at all at this point, or are you pretty much established enough that it is all word of mouth and you're just kind of doing that on the side? What do you feel like has helped you the very most get yourself out there and people to notice you and your product?
I think for me, events on word of mouth was definitely my starting point and has helped me because, um, not all events will be successful. Some events you'll just make a couple $100. Other events you'll make, $5,000, 6,000. So it really just depends on the events you go to. But I can tell you, my largest wholesale account came from an event that I didn't do very well. I mean, all the vendors, it was really slow that weekend, and the event wasn't really marketed very well. So all the vendors were, they were pretty complaining about it. But because I was there, one of the ladies that was there was a manager for Anniversary Inn, and she asked me to do some stuff for her. And so they're my biggest wholesale customers because I do 3 locations, Boise, Salt Lake, and Logan. And so right now, because everybody's staying home, I cannot keep my product, I can't keep up. I'm so busy with them. So you never know as far as what events, you'll meet, what type of people or who, you will connect with. And so for me, events were my biggest sellers and making the biggest profit. I do want to go into more online. I just haven't had the chance to really dig into it, because I'm so busy making the product. But I would love to do more online. I've kind of started a website. I haven't published it yet, but I just want to, I want to publish it. It's just taking the time to do it. I've listened to several other interviews and talked to other people. It is, if you're not on there almost every day, it seems like, you're missing out or whatever. But so I do want to go that way. It's just I haven't had the time to do it.
Well, and it sounds like you're busy enough. Like you're at a place now where you have a lot going on and you probably are busy enough with your business that you don't necessarily need to get busier yet, but that time might come when the kiddos are out of the house, right? And
Yeah.
maybe that'll be the good time. So speaking on that, tell us a little bit about how you balance your day and kind of what an average day looks like so that you do feel like you're there when the kids need you to be there.
That is the biggest struggle in my life, is trying to separate work and family, especially working from home and doing a production lines basically, just to give you kind of an idea. So last year I did over 7,000 products, and so it keeps you really, really busy. And I work in my kitchen. So your kitchen is your busiest place, right? So I'm constantly working on something. Okay, it's dinner, so I have to haul it off to a place, make dinner, clean up, and haul my stuff back. And so it's just been really crazy, and I'm really struggling with that because on some weeks, and people who want to get into this business and they want to do events and wholesale and things, you got to understand sometimes last fall I was clocking 100 hours a week, and it was just really crazy because you're like, I'm missing out on my family, and your kids like, Mom, you never spend time with me. So that is the one thing. I mean, I appreciate and I love the opportunity and I love my customers and everybody's been great about it. But I also feel like I've missed out, the past year or so, especially with how busy I've gotten. So I'm still trying to figure that out. Haven't been successful at it. But I really like it though, because I'm home, and then it's like, okay, even if the kids are asking questions about doing homework at the kitchen table, I can still be there, to do it. But then other times it's crazy because you just want to focus on a recipe, because if you mess up, okay, now I got to throw away the recipe, because your kids are like, Mom, I need help or whatever, and you're trying to talk to them and then you forgot, okay, did I put in 8 tablespoons or was it 4 tablespoons, So it's really, really crazy. And so it's just, my husband and my family are ready for me to move my business out of my house. They keep asking, when are you getting your own store? Because I have commandeered probably a third of our house with all my stuff. And so I know my family is really tired of it. So I just wasn't prepared for how quickly my business was going to grow. And so, like I said, I'm the poster child of what not to do.
I don't know about that. But at least you're in the hub of the house. The kitchen
Yeah,
is a wonderful place, so you're seeing them come and go, and you'll figure it out. It reminds me of a few other interviews I've done where they've gotten to a point where it got really intense and really busy, and they had to figure out a way to back off, but kind of still keep some momentum. So I know there's ways you'll figure it out, but I think that is a real issue that all moms face, and
yeah,
especially entrepreneurs face and small business owners face. So I think that that's good that you bring it up and talk about it, because that's definitely something that we all have to consider. And every little business is different, and there's some really heavier times and slower times, and we all make it work. But I think just finding what works best for you and your family is the most important thing. Um, so what would you say, well, actually, let's ask this first. What are your most favorite and least favorite parts of this particular business that you run?
my favorite part is the creativity, especially the soaps. Even though they're not my number one seller, I love the soaps because I can do so many different things, and I love just trying. Okay, I've become like a obsessed with molds, which is really weird. I probably have like 500 or 600 molds. I mean, it's really, really, I've spent a lot of money on molds, but it's just like I'll walk in the store and I'll be like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wonder if I can do something with that mold. Or, I'm constantly looking for, like, I'll just be walking at the park and I'll see some lady wearing a dress with a certain fabric print and the colors are just awesome, or how the design is. And so I'll take a picture and then I'll go home and then I try and make it my own. And so I think that's the one thing I love about this business is you can be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like doing a soap or putting together a spa package, or hey, I want to try this different fragrance or essential blend. So that part I really, really like. That the least part that I like is you are having to wear so many hats. You have to, be the researcher, you have to do the accounting, you have to clean up, you have to, do your labeling, make sure your labels are correct. So there's so many things that even though I did all this research, I just didn't realize how intense it can be as far as, okay, did I get the label right? Because, the government says you're supposed to have this labeled a certain way, or did I get my recipe right? Is it going to be okay on people's skin? And, you want people to like your things, and then my product is not like a sewing a dress or, something that you can keep, for 2 or 3 years or more, So, the constant, okay, I have, 100 things that are in stock and I need to push them or I need to get rid of them. What do I do with them, And so, I mean, my kids' friends, my daughter's friends, and my family, they love it that I have like all this extra inventory or stuff that I've messed up on because they get it for free and they come and they load up and they leave, But, so for instance, like Valentine's Day, I made, like 100 or 200 bath bombs because I was going to sell them at a certain place. Well, because of COVID-19, it was a little after, I was going to do the Valentine's and then I was going to do another big promotion a month later. But then with COVID-19 hit and then a lot of stuff shut it down, that's kind of like, okay, I'm sitting on 300 or 400 bath bombs. What am I going to do with them, So it's just the constant worrying, and my brain won't shut off, So I'll be laying in bed, I'll get to bed around 1 or 2 in the morning, and I'll be like, okay, you know what, I could have done this design differently, or I didn't email this person back, So it's just, I think that part, it's just there's just a lot of hats that you have to wear, and I don't think people realize when they start a business how many you have to wear. And so I think that's the least amount. Is I would love to like filter it out and have somebody else do it, but for right now it's just me.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much to do, especially at the beginning. So how long do you think it realistically took you to be profitable once you were kind of 100% in and started that first show and went forward from there?
So I've only done it for 3 years. My second year I was profitable, but what I did is I took all my money and I invested it back into my company. So, and then this year is kind of like, okay, well, what's going to happen because, everybody's taken 3 or 4 or 5 months off basically, and
Right.
all events are, been canceled. So I'm not quite sure about this year.
Mm-hmm.
I've been going by, usually small businesses, they say 3 to 5 years or 2 to 5
Mm-hmm.
years, you can be profitable. So I was lucky enough my second year to be profitable. Not a whole lot, but enough where, it's like, hey, I am making a profit, and so,
Yeah.
I had like 50% increase in sales, over the second year. And so that's another thing that people might not tell other people when you sell things at events is keep stats. Okay, so keep what have you sold? Like for soaps and bath and body products. Okay, what items did you sell? What fragrance did you sell? Because some fragrances sell better at one event and not another event, or an item sells at one event, another event. So always keeping track and just kind of adjusting, that also really helps. So I just think, everybody's different. I mean, what do you want? Do you want like just a hobby type to sell, and make money, or do you want a business? So I think realistically you could do it with 2 or 3 years. So it just depends on what your goal is.
Yeah, and maybe how much inventory you want to have on
Yeah.
hand and how many products and a whole lot of things. So
Yeah.
that is really good advice and good information. So what do you think? There's so many appealing career opportunities in the creative side. And I think there's a lot of girls out there that are creative and
Oh,
enjoy
yeah.
those things. So how do you know for sure if this would be a good fit for someone? Do you think there's a certain characteristic that you can identify with, or maybe with some of your daughter's friends, you'd be like, oh, this could totally be something they could do when they're older? Is there something that you could give us advice on to help teens see if this could be a good fit for them?
Um, I still struggle with that because even I, as an adult struggle because it's like I go to certain events and I see what people do. I mean, there's so many amazing people who are so talented. And you look at it and think, huh, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
So I think if somebody, wants to do something that is willing to make sure, like to keep up with the inventory to, um, like I said, like things that are more like sewing or making hair products or things like that. Something that, is a turnover, like bath and body products, you can't have it over, a year or 2 or 6 months or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's my only thing that I would say is, make sure you want to be able to do that, to be able to say, okay, I'm willing to push this product or try and sell this product or try and go out and get sales so I don't have my inventory.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a lot of fun. I mean, the bath fizzies, bath bombs, they're so popular right now, that, people go nuts over them. So, I mean, it is fun to see people like, oh, yay, and they're excited about it, or, you can have people like my daughter, her best friend, she is allergic to water on her skin. And so trying to take baths or using lotions or showers or anything, she breaks out. And so I was talking to her and I'm like, oh, you know what? I just read a recipe that didn't have water in it for lotion, the lotion bars. And so I made her some lotion bars. And so that was kind of cool because like, oh, I can actually help somebody, So I think it just depends on what their goals would be, where they want to end up as far as a business or what they want to do as a business. But it definitely is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it definitely is a lot of fun. And I love meeting all, new people and talking to people because, being at home with my kids all the time, it kind of like, okay, I'm craving for, adult conversation or any kind of conversation besides a 6 or 7-year-old,
Yeah, for sure. Does it take a certain level of patience in what you do? Like I'm thinking about like even sewing or just kind of creating any type of thing that you put together with your hands and sell. There's probably some patience. Like you'd have to be able to sit down and really focus on something for a long amount of time.
There is, and I still struggle with that because, like when you're like, for instance, when you're making soap, like yesterday, my husband, he was like, okay, you need to be out of the kitchen by 4:30 because I need to make dinner. He was going to make dinner, right? And I'm like, okay, 4:30, and it was like at 4:20. I'm like, oh my goodness, my first layer of my soap didn't harden. Okay, I'm like, hurry, and I'm trying to, trying to make it, put it in the fridge or whatever to try and harden up so I can put the second layer so I could release the kitchen to my husband. And I poured the second layer and it didn't go very well. It bled through it melted the first layer. And so I'm like, okay, there goes my design, but it's like, okay, what do? You try and do something different to make it work, So yes, there is a lot of patience as far as, okay, I thought that my design was going to look like this and it ended up like this. Then you have to this is where the creative part comes in. Okay, it doesn't look good this way, but what if I add a stamp to it? Or what if I put another piece of soap on top, like a flower or whatever to make it look better, So I think patience as far as that, and then the packaging. Oh my goodness, the packaging is like, after doing 200 or 300 packaging 200 or 300 items, in an afternoon, you're like, okay, I'm so done with this, but I have 500 more, So a lot of patience, yeah.
So do you think that if there was a kiddo out there that was interested in this at a younger age, do you think the best route maybe would be to find someone like you and work with you and have you become their mentors, and then maybe try a few of those vendor shows where they can go in as a younger person or teenager just to see if this really is something that they enjoy? I mean, they could probably experiment with a few different types of things in the creative industry and a few different moms and mentors, and really get a feel for if this is something they could commit to long term.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like my daughter, I mean, she's worked for me for 2.5 years. And last year, I asked her if she would run her own booth because I wanted to double book, because I wanted to check out this other venue, but I didn't want to lose my spot in this other venue.
Right.
And so she's like, sure, I'll do my own. And she did awesome, and she was
Good.
only 15 at the time. So yeah, I definitely think that would help, because I even like have my little nieces help me with packaging because there's so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, here, if you come work with me for 4 hours, I'll pay you, and,
Yeah.
and then like, you can listen to podcasts or music and jam out or do whatever, I just need the packaging done, but
Yeah.
the little steps. And that's what I did with my daughter. I started her off with packaging, and then I asked her to keep stats, and then I've asked her if she wanted to make some things, and she's like, no, I don't want to do that right now, but other little things, I mean, she's done where I've had her try to take photos of my product, or do some research, or rearrange, different things. And so, yeah, I definitely think that would help. And that's what I was actually talking to my husband about, and a couple of my friends a little while ago. It's like, you know what, I think I want to try and get younger people in, pay them and give them some experience, because it's so good. And I sent you a message about this, where my daughter, she's like, Mom, I think I want to get another job. And she's 16. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You should go outside the house and get another job and work with people and see how other people, what other businesses do.
Yeah.
And so it was really neat, because after working for me for 2.5 years, she was able to put things like, I've done production, I've done cashier, I've ran my own booth, lots of customer service, brand ambassador, website, so there's so many skills that she was able to put on her application. And she interviewed with 2 companies first time, and she got both jobs. I mean, she chose one job, but 2 offers, I should say. Mm-hmm. So it was really fun, and I was really proud of her, because she's worked so hard and she had all this experience before her first official job. Right. So yeah, I think it would be neat if kids, that if they, whatever type of business they want to go into, if people would take them in and just have them do a beginner task, because it is so important, I think, to teach kids, okay, this is how you perform at a job. This is what you do. And it just helps them build their confidence. And okay, like my daughter, okay, I don't want to do soap making business. I'm like, great. Then that's what you don't want to do, So, it just gives them a different view of life and how things work.
That's great. And I think our interview today has been so good. We've covered so many different things. Is there any last words of advice or thoughts or anything at all that you would like to leave with the teens before we wrap up today?
Don't give up.
For moms too.
Don't give up. There is a lot of stress. Yes, there is. There can be tears. Yes, there's been tears, But the one thing is, be proud of what you do, be proud of what you've accomplished. Even though, like, I'll talk to my friends and they're like, oh, you're so amazing, you did this. I'm like, what do you mean? It's just a little business. And, and what do you mean? My house is a mess all the time. Or, I'm complaining, my kids complain, or my family complains because the laundry's not done or something. But just be proud and know that, you can do whatever you want, and anybody can start a business. And that's the one thing I wish that I knew when I was younger, like, oh, you know what? I didn't even think about a small business when I was in my 20s or 30s. And I just look at all these ladies that I've met through the venues, just amazed at, they seem to get younger and younger, and they're successful in their side business. And I just think it's great that, just don't give up and just believe in yourself, even though, I've had times where I've worked on batches of things and then find out they didn't work. And so it's like, there goes 50 things that I can't sell. And you're like, I can't believe I just wasted that money. But you know what? You learn something from it. Okay, so now you don't do this and you don't do this, and next time it'll be better. So I think that's the one thing, is just, you know what? You can do it. Don't give up. And there's such a great community out there that will be supportive, whether they're in your line of business or not. But there's so many people willing to lift each other up. I just really appreciate that, and I just am amazed at the community that we live in. It's just great.
Yeah, there's so many wonderful moms out there, and they really do reach out and support each other, which is really, really fun. I'm just amazed at what you've accomplished. You put a lot of work into it, I can tell, but it really fell into place for you, and you've put together a fantastic business, and it's all yours, and you make the most beautiful soaps ever. Like people want to eat them because they look so real. So I think it's just so fabulous what you've done, Anna, and I appreciate your time so much today. So much good advice that these teens and maybe even moms can tune into it and learn from. So I appreciate it so much. I'm excited to continue to follow you on Instagram. And what's great is all these young people can then follow you and learn from you and kind of see what's going on as well. And I think it's fun to go to those events. I like to take my girls to those events so they can see all the different things that these amazing moms and women are doing, and it kind of sparks something in their brain, and they think, I can probably do something like this too. So I guess we'll just wrap it up there. So thanks again for watching, everyone, and we'll see you in the next interview.